All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So we're getting rigged up, getting ready to drop into my home lake here and hopefully wear out some fish. But today we're going to be talking about my top baits, really, my casting setup. So, you know, if you're new to the channel, at the beginning of every month, I do my finesse baits first, and then I do the follow-up baits, which is typically my casting equipment. That way it's all in and out of the way. You can check out the videos before you hit the lake on the weekend or whenever you prefer to fish. But, you know, either way, we're going to be talking about, I don't even know how many I got out here, 2, 4, yeah, 6. So we're going to be talking about 6 of my favorite setups for January. So stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, everybody. So the first one I want to talk about is one that you're going to hear me talk about pretty much year round, but you know, it seems to always make the list because it's a bait that I catch fish off of year round, and that's a swim bait. But you know, typically I'm talking about the mayors, typically I'm talking about the 6 Sense Divine, but this time of year I really like going with the Rage Swimmers just because of that resistance. The ribs are pointed forward, I can slow it down even more and still get that good action, and typically the bites that you get off of this is going to be multiple, and they're typically going to be bigger fish. Set up 7'3", medium heavy action, 7.5 to 1 gear ratio, real 15-pound fluorocarbon. I do like fluorocarbon on my swim baits. I've tried monofilament and everything else. I just like not having that much stretch, but it's something definitely to get comfortable with. But either way, your Rage Swimmer, any type of swim bait like that is going to be a great choice for targeting those suspended fish, especially ones if you're fishing blueback herring lakes or gizzard shad lakes, anywhere that you have a bigger shad than, you know, like your typical threadfin and stuff like that, and you're targeting those fish that are eating those. So the next one I want to talk about is one that really comes into play for me all winter throughout spring and stuff, and this bait, it's one of those that's just extremely hard to beat whenever you get those winter rains and stuff like that. Like we had a front push through yesterday. I mean, just tons of rain, tons of wind, all that stuff. The water's muddy on specific parts of the lake and stuff like that. Got a lot of run-ins coming in, but either way, you know, that's a river rat spinnerbait. Booyah has their covert series. I like the covert series also, but War Eagle has theirs called a river rat, and this is just a good option. You can really slow this bait down. You can adjust the speed however you need to keep it wherever you want to in the water column, and it's just a great way to catch a lot of fish. Now, I've had this rod for years, and this is that Duck It Triad, 7-foot medium heavy. It's just a setup that I've used for spinnerbaits for years that I just really like. But either way, you know, 7.3 to 1 gear ratio reel, 15-pound fluorocarbon also. That water gets muddy, you got a lot of run-ins coming in, you're fishing around cover. Anytime those fish get close to cover after a front or before a front or anything like that, then you can really target those fish with that spinnerbait. And as you can see, it's chewed up a lot. Great spinnerbait. Now the next one that I want to talk about is just a famous wintertime bait, and I hear a lot of people talk about how it's, you know, one of those, it's a winter bait, and once the winter's done then it's over with, but that's not true at all. But it is made famous throughout winter, and that's a jerkbait. Okay, this is Slash 110 by Thunderhawk Lures. Now, there's 3 jerkbaits that I really like to run. I like running the Megabass 110. I like running the Megabass Katana, I think that's what it's called, or Kanata, something like that. The other one is the Strike King jerkbait series. They all have a specific action to me that's perfect for whatever time of year. Winter, as soon as that water hits below 60 degrees, I'm going with the Slash. 100% of the time, I'm going with the Slash 110, simply because it's got a lazier kind of dart action, okay? So it's not like that Megabass where it's super darty, okay, and all over the place. The Slash has kind of got that lazier action, so it looks more cold. It looks like a more natural cold presentation, like bait fish would look when they're cold. Megabass is going to be darty. That's my #1 go-to late spring, summer, early fall jerkbait. I'll throw it that entire time. Y'all saw how I work it. You watch, you know, me work that jerkbait. People's like, oh my God, you're not gonna catch anything, you're moving it too fast, but I promise, it's one of the most intense and funnest bites that you'll ever have. But either way, that Strike King, I like throwing it about the middle of the spring, middle of fall, as you know, the temperature's warming up, as the temperature's cooling down in the fall. I'm gonna throw that Strike King. It's got a little bit more of a darty action than the Slash does, but it's not super darty like the mega bass, obviously, but you know, I'm throwing this on the 6.7, I think it is 6.7, yeah, 6.7, medium fast. This is just a jerkbait rod made by Thunderhawk's Tyco series. You can throw a jerkbait about all day as long as your arm can handle it. On this rod, super lightweight. I highly suggest if you're looking for a good expensive jerkbait rod, go with the Tyco series. I have sent this sucker into the trolling motor a couple of times by accident. Don't tell anybody that, but you know, as far as durability, you can about send it into the trolling motor and it will hold up. So either way, let's talk about one that you can use to cover areas where the fish are pushed up close to cover after fronts or right before front starts happening, where you can get in and out of those areas and get fish to bite. That's going to be a football head jig. The football head jig is one of the most notorious jigs to use really year round. But either way, there's two jigs that I like to use. That's the football head and that's the round head. I've grown to really like the Dobbins, the Hags, and of course G Moneys. But you know, the Dobbins jigs I like the weed guard. Okay, they remind me a lot of the G Money jigs, but the weed guard on them just holds up a lot better, in my opinion. Hags, really, you can about put it through anything. We'll just say that it's a super deep cover jig that really outshines the other jigs. But now the other one is the War Eagle Heavy Finesse jig. It's a round head jig. You can throw that thing in anything. They're cheap. They come 2 in a pack. They got all your normal colors, your black and blues, your PB&J, your green pumpkin, all that good stuff. But I've really come fond to loving these Dobbin jigs, okay? But either way, you know, using this bait up against cover, or maybe, let's say, you know, you hadn't really got any fronts come through, it's just been steady but cold. Fishing those long points that come out, taking this bait, throwing it out there, letting it hit bottom and dragging that bait super slow across bottom is going to be a great choice. Now, I like to team it up with something very specific. I don't like going with those crawl style baits this time of year. I want something more subtle. It's cold, everything's cold, and that's the grub. So whatever grubs you prefer. I've been running the Berkeley Power Bait. I absolutely love the Berkeley Power Bait, but that's one that I'm going to throw on that jig. Now I'm using the same setup that I've always talked about when it comes to football head jigs: 7'3", medium heavy, 7'3" to 1 gear ratio reel, 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon depending on what I'm fishing, but 99% of the time it's going to be the 15 pound fluorocarbon. Now another one that I want to talk about, this is one that I really like fishing on points and bluff walls, and that's a swing head. Okay, so this is like that football head design, but it's got that swivel in it. Let me just take it off here for just 2 seconds. But see, the hook will actually move freely. This is a swing head, and this is one actually made by Hags, but you know, it's got the flat head on it. I think this was made by Hags. It may be a different brand. Either way, I will look it up and put it in the description. But either way, it's got the flat head on it. So usually when this hits bottom, the head's going to stay still and the hook's just going to fall over. Now, I'm not putting those crawl style baits. I am putting a crawl style bait on here, but I'm not putting, like, you know, your Rage Tails or your Yum Christie crawls and all that stuff. I don't want all that action. I'm still going to be running those grubs. So I'm typically going to rig that up with the grubs. A little more subtle action. You can target those real deep zones. It's kind of like fishing with Senkos, you know, this time of year. You just don't want a whole lot of action. This right here, it's going to hit bottom and it's going to slowly fall over. Okay, it just looks like something that's fell and it's just slowly falling over and dying. And in return, you're going to get a lot more bites, especially with that swing head. But I'm going with a 7'4" heavy action rod. 7'3" to 1 gear ratio, 20 pound fluorocarbon, 20 pound fluorocarbon. Make sure you write that down, 20 pound fluorocarbon on that. You're going to be fishing around a lot of rocks, and you want something with good abrasion resistance, okay? So either way, let's talk about the last one. This is the one I'm most excited about. This right here is the blade bait, okay? So if you're not familiar with the blade bait, you work it very similar to a jigging spoon, okay? So I'm throwing that bait out there, and then I'm pulling up at like that 45, okay? I'm just jigging that bait, okay, up and down, just like you're working a jigging spoon. And this has got a very, very tight vibration. This works very, very well in deep water. You're fishing ditches and stuff like that, you can get this bait down there super quick. You can jig it through those bait balls and stuff like that and get fish fired up. Now, this is one made by Thunderhawk. They got all different sizes. This is the 3/4 ounce, so I got the 3/4 ounce on for up here, but they go all the way up to like 2 ounces or something ridiculous. All the weights in the head. You got 5 holes to adjust, you know, how much vibration or how you want the bait to run. And one of the coolest things is this runs heavy head down, so you can actually run this through cover. Now, this comes in big handy fishing lakes like Lewis Smith Lake, where you've got all the brush tops and stuff in the water and you're targeting that depth zone. Other blade baits, you're going to get hung up a lot, and don't get me wrong, you're going to get hung up with this. I mean, it's a treble hook bait, but you're typically not going to get as many you know, just hang up on branches and stuff like that with the blade bait by Thunderhawk. Now, I'm running this on a 7'1" medium heavy rod, and then I'm going with a 7.3 to 1 gear ratio on 15-pound test, because typically I'm going to be fishing this in that 25 to 60 foot zone. You know, there's not a whole lot of light penetration. So, you know, the line choice, I highly advise getting something on up there, 15 to 20 pound test, where if you do get hung up, you have a chance of getting it back. Because if you're 60 foot down, chances are you're probably not going to get it back unless you can create enough tension and break something off. But you know, either way, guys, that's, you know, my top 6 baits for January. And just let me know what you think about them in the comments, what you use, what you prefer to use. That's what we're all here for, is to learn. That's one of the great things about this community. We're all learning, and we're all having fun while we fish. That's the main thing. Also, don't forget to check out my sponsors' products. If you go to buy a blade bait from Thunderhawk, I do work with Thunderhawk, use my code CPOSY20. You'll get 20% off of your entire purchase, whether it's on the rods, the slash, the blade bait, any of that stuff that I use. And you'll get 20% off, and it helps me out a whole lot. And either way, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by. And if you have any questions, always drop a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.